Welcome to Truth2Power for You. I'm your host, Brian Kasher. Truth2Power for You is a mini-series produced for organizers and people like you and me, people who want to improve the human condition. While the corporate media is generating their profits by covering the daily distraction, Truth2Power for You is about organizing for action. This episode's featured interview is Greg Lindquist. Greg is a painter, a sculptor, and an installation artist who has the guiding principle that art can facilitate social change. I met with Greg in his New York studio to discuss his Smoke on Water series, which is a series of installations and paintings, including but not limited to a large format mural at Monroe Crossing Mall in Monroe, North Carolina. Also featured this episode is Nakisa Glover. Nakisa is a music producer, artist, hip-hop scholar, and cultural curator, originally out of Philadelphia, who now calls Asheville, North Carolina, home. Nakisa dropped a few thought-provoking spoken word reflective pieces about the human condition for your consideration here at Truth2Power for You. Speaking about art and the change-making process, songs, poetry, imagery, and symbols each have made major impressions on society, one individual at a time. From prehistoric cave paintings to the steel of Hammurabi, to the terracotta warriors, right up to the billboards, t-shirts, and posters of today. Art inspires both people to think and act. People today are using arts and advocacy much more than ever before. I mean, you can't go to a rally or a public hearing on important matters without seeing creative messaging. And when I say creative messaging, I mean messaging ranging from items made with pencils, paints, or markers. They're using poster board, cardboard, 8.5 by 11 sheets of plain paper. Some people are using computers and printers for quick or more complex designs, while some people go to the print shop to print posters or picket sign designs that they sketched out themselves. And some people just get plain crafty with their art, using all sorts of interesting materials to get the message out there. I've even seen advanced multimedia installations or even, yes, 15-foot tall puppets for change. They work, folks. It all works. You know, you don't have to be Mary Cassatt, Rembrandt, or Andy Warhol to make creative messaging. Anybody can really do it. And it's not only fun, but it often brings together people working through the creation process, making messages in ways that just can't be replicated by providing hearing and a testimony or the typical soapbox speech. Think about it. Hundreds of people can get your message from looking at your sign or banner. But to impact the same number of people with a conversation would take way, way, way more time. Do you make signs or carry signs made by others to express your views? It's so easy. It's so easy to use creativity in advocacy. But hey, let's not forget about spoken word, which as a genre is often intended to transfer lots of information in a short period of time. Early hip-hop as an art form was the CNN of the streets, so they say. Greg Lindquist is on deck, folks, but first, here's Nakisa Glover with a lead-off example of spoken word called Introduction.
1973 was the year that the universe gave to me. Born into a musical family, raised on custom stats, gambling huff, JBs, Philly was the place to be. Gang war everywhere. Bodies on the schoolyard, people stop and stare. Most kids would look and scare or pretending to not care, but Netzmalin stayed aware. There was a change in the air, loud and clear. The culture was the name, hip hop was the game. I never did it for the money or fame, always did it for knowledge, wisdom, understanding, brain change. Made for the people, by the people, from the people. Not a sequel but a prequel to the way that we live. Peace, unity, wisdom, that's the way that we give. Educate, develop, improve the present state. State.
There you have it.
State.
Sharing information through spoken word, rhythm, verse, tempo, research, wordplay, social awareness are all aspects of spoken word as an artistic genre. We have more from Next later in the episode. Greg Lindquist is a North Carolina-born artist with earned master's degrees in both painting and art history from the Pratt Institute in New York. Greg has created a number of social justice-rooted series, including topics like, for instance, the gentrification of deindustrialized Brooklyn waterfronts in late capitalism. Greg also traveled to Tbilisi, Georgia, to illustrate Soviet Union-era decay. The Dan River coal ash spill is driver of his project Smoke and Water, which is the focus of our discussion today. We visited Greg in his New York City studio to discuss Smoke and Water, as well as the role of art in social change. Let's take a look. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Brian. How's it going?
I'm really interested in what was it that triggered your interest in art and the change process?
I mean, I'm interested in asking the questions like, how can you use beauty to engage people? How can you use beauty to draw people in? How can you use beauty as a way to make art more accessible to a broader group of people, to bring together communities, to create things together? And that space of creating things together can give possibility. Can give possibility for reconsidering positions, can give possibility for imagining new worlds, can give possibility for, changing the world that we see.
So let's talk a little bit about Smoke and Water. Can you share, how did this project come about?
With Smoke and Water, it really started or was precipitated by the Dan River spill that happened. What you had there was like 35,000 tons of coal ash that was dumped into the Dan River on the border of Virginia and North Carolina. And I think the thing that I was most arrested by was the fact that the visual evidence of that coal ash mixing in the water was in fact these beautiful visual patterns of swirls. And so the question that I had that brought the next stage of the project, or actually the question that I had that really initiated the project was, how could something so ugly, in other words, this byproduct from burning coal to create electricity, how could something so ugly with all of these contaminants in it, 7 different heavy metals, how could something so ugly appear to be so beautiful? And I think that just really disrupts a lot of assumptions that we have in terms of morality, that good things look beautiful, bad things look ugly. And to kind of upend and kind of twist that thing and then kind of move it back, I think creates this tension, maybe a moral tension more than a visual tension now. So the Smoke and Water started as a project in Wilmington, North Carolina, my hometown where I was born and I grew up. And it started as a collaboration and a partnership with Working Films, an activist film company. We partnered with the Cucaloris Film Festival, and so we also showed Rhianna Fion's rough cut of her documentary Coal Ash Chronicles. But there we just created an immersive installation, kind of an engulfing installation of visual stimulation of painted walls, of taking this coal ash swirl and these patterns and repeating them over and over and kind of interweaving them into the architecture. But also we collected 50-word statements from the community that was impacted, and in doing so we worked with various environmentalist organizations across the state. And by gathering those statements, we then painted them onto canvases and actually hung them in the installation. And so we were carrying the voices and carrying the stories of these people who were affected, literally in a visual arts installation.
It's beautiful. How did you come up with, or where does the idea to engage the community in this artwork come from?
You know, the first version of this in a community center in Wilmington, that was the first version of it. You know, arguably the version before that was in a commercial gallery in Raleigh, which the first mural happened. And then the the third version of it was in the North Carolina Museum of Art, where I created an installation that, again, was engaging the communities of the universities, but the communities of teen programs, but also the art community of Raleigh at the North Carolina Museum of Art. And so that was another iteration of it that brought more exposure to it, because I was using the institution, or partnering with the institution, to broadcast the message larger. And then I think even more interesting part of that whole project was doing it in a commercial space, or a space of commerce, such as the Monroe Crossings, you know, a mall that is like literally the crossing space or the communal space for a community. So I think that was even more successful in engaging a cross-section of a community, because quite literally you had people working together that were in different social groups, that were outside of just a small arts community that I think the original work was engaging with. One of the things I remember is that we had a father with his child, and then her friends, and literally they just put on painting suits and painted for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then he actually left them and came back and they were still painting, and it was great. I mean, there was a certain amount of freedom, but also a really high level of excitement in doing that.
I can't tell you how many people I ran into at the mall who were having discussions specific to coal ash. You know, they were participating in creating this beautiful public art space, but then also discussing how the coal ash in the water is affecting their community and their lives.
I'm here to help paint with the wall mural and to spread awareness.
I love this whole idea. I mean, this is a beautiful and great opportunity to have all the community involved.
I just think it's a brilliant opportunity to spread the word about coal ash in the Catawba River, which is really important to us. So I think it's a great way to get people involved and show the importance of cleaning our water and being more aware of the pollution in it.
Your work seems to transgress the traditional barriers of covering a topic that is a current social and ecological disaster, hazard, political issue for that matter.
I think there needs to be more public art that's more challenging. I mean, and I think that a lot of that, I mean, in terms of Monroe, it's a very unique situation because of the Art and Buildings project. You know, the Art and Buildings project is much more progressive than most public art. So, I mean, I think there needs to be more public art that's more challenging, and I think there is public art that does that, but largely when you think of public art, what do you think of? Things that are palatable, things that are non-threatening, you know, that keep you feeling comfortable, that they don't push against the boundary of what allows you to feel, challenged in any way. And that's interesting because I think that kind of puts us back in the same space of like the desensitization that happens with technology and social media. I think the best art challenges your assumptions of what art can be.
My take on it is that you're really at the fulcrum between, fine arts, okay, and social justice, where your art kind of it transgresses through those barriers that have been culturally set up now for millennia.
At the end of the day, a painting is a painting. And a painting can be as tethered or untethered to a social reality by its framing. And I think that the framework that I built around this project is pretty vast. This is where the question comes of like, how can art align, or how can art give the possibility to realign values, to change, to give people the possibility or the space to work through the issue. And so it's a balance between kind of being a gesture of possibility and being sensitive to not being didactic, to not push ideas on people.
Let me ask you, how do you see art and activism? What's the same and what's different?
It's really simple. I mean, art is securitas. Art gives you a contemplative space. Art allows the possibility for contemplation of moral issues, the sensitivity to being more aware. It allows you to see nuances in larger issues, right? Activism, which I participate in as well, and I think is a really important part of what I do, is about having an end goal and moving towards that end goal and trying to reach it. So it's much more goal-oriented, it's much more action-oriented. It's about not feeling heard and being heard, finding a way to be heard. It's about feeling like people are not acknowledging a position, or people are not, or government is not acknowledging a particular position, and amplifying what's not heard.
What kind of advice do you have for folks who might like to use their art as an engaging expression?
Well, first of all, get off your smartphone, experience nature, form communities and dialogues and friendships with people outside of your comfort zones, outside of these little pockets that we've all been kind of, I think, led to and kind of trapped in. But I think in terms of art, I think there should be more art activities that bring people together and that you can learn more and develop programs with people.
Have you yourself engaged in any marches?
The day after the election, it felt good to be in solidarity with many, many other people. But I also went to the Women's March in DC. I think these things are important because I think that that's exercising the freedoms that we have. And I think that that is something that we all need to keep in mind, that we need to express opinions we need to express ideas, and we need to express discontent. And I think that art and protests has had a long relationship, a long healthy relationship for that. And I feel really energized by those things.
As an artist, you've been blessed with the ability to raise awareness through beauty, through aesthetic, to issues that otherwise you might find would not generally be found in a public art space.
I think that art right now should be more than ever inclusive, and one of the things that I am so aware of and trying to correct is this narrative that's predominated by race and gender.
Yes.
And so it's really I'm really starting to see also how these issues are embedded in the language that's used to describe them. And there's just so many instances and so many ways to really express and to really underscore the need for inclusivity. And I think that that's a really important part of the projects that I do. And I think it's a really important thing to fight the backlash of exclusivity and the backlash of racism and the backlash of misogyny. So, I mean, these are all embedded in art, whether or not people think it's there. I think that, you know, it's really important right now more than ever for anyone to feel that they can participate in art.
Thanks for that, and thanks for your time. Appreciate it. Love your studio, love your space, love your work, and hope to see more of you.
Thanks, Brian.
All right. Greg uses beauty to make people think about some really challenging aspects of society. But I can witness to you right here and now that it works. I watched people from all walks of life, young, old, whatever, visiting Monroe Crossing and discussing the issues of coal ash in our water right at the mural. Do you have a building in need of public art or an idea for a grant involving bringing to light environmental or social justice issues? Interested in one of the Smoke and Water series for display at your office or home? I'm sure Greg would appreciate hearing from you. Give him a call, drop him an email. No problem, great guy. All right? Next up is Nex Millen with his thought-provoking number, Status Quo. Here's Nex.
Thank God the sky is blue. Thank God for me and you. Our world is changing right before our eyes. Enjoy the view. We walk around hopped up, yelling what to do. The government is watching me and watching you. We are awakened people. The man think we lethal. Let's start thinking for ourselves, cause there is no equal. Let's come together all for one and one for all. The only way we gonna make it through this final call. We being ruled by the media, industry, entertainment, corporate slum, drug companies that make no cheese off the cure of disease, but rather treatment. Lord, what they doing to me? I try to simply hold my ground, but the world keep pushing back. I try to put my people down with some straight up facts. I really wish they listen. This here is just a glisten of what we really missing. Self-described, we're fishes.
Wow. Next throws down some serious truth messaging in Status Quo. Watch it a couple times with your local group or some friends, and afterwards talk about what Nex is saying and the time it took to share such a large volume of information. You know, just a little bit of time, a lot of information. I caught up with Jenny Lamensdorf at Monroe Crossing in Monroe, where a version of Smoke and Water was being installed as a large interior mural at the mall. Jenny is the director of Art and Buildings, which commissioned a Smoke and Water mural as public art. Jenny explains how a large piece of art focused on coal ash in our water could be commissioned for the mall. You know, it's not often that we find such bold topics on display in public art forms. So here's Jenny. I'm very interested in time equities and the fact that we've got a developer interested in public art.
Yeah, Time Equities is a real estate developer. We're based out of New York City, but we have properties in probably 27 or 28 states and 4 countries. And the Art and Buildings program is hosted by Time Equities.
In a public space like this, to be addressing coal ash, I can imagine it was a challenge. How did that come about?
The fact that Greg is from North Carolina, that he's interested in an environmental subject matter that is inherently related to this same town, and that he makes murals, it was just kind of kismet. It made sense to do this project.
But come on, developers don't generally invest out of the kindness of their hearts. What's up with that?
It's a privately held company, and the CEO is a major arts patron, and he thinks that it's important to have art in more than just in museums and galleries, that people can experience art throughout their daily lives. He thinks that improves one's daily life. And the mission is to be a platform for contemporary emerging and mid-career artists, to expand the audience for contemporary art, and to make the properties that he owns more interesting places to live, work, or do business.
If folks are interested in your programs, art in buildings, how can they follow what you do?
We have a website.
Okay.
It's very easy, I hope, TEIartinbuildings.com.
Okay.
And we use Facebook and Instagram and all that.
There are some real jewels out there, folks, some real jewels. We need to find those jewels and bring them into the movement, bring them in, welcome them. Next up is mass media, where Nex uses his platform to share information with his audience about what's happening all around us. You know, the more people hear about issues through whatever channels, the more they hear, the more likely it is that they'll get involved and participate in issues that matter. Let's see what Nex has to say.
They got them satellite uplinks on back of their trucks, live feed HD cameras running amok. Paparazzi got their own show, TMZ. Angela Mitchell reports, CNBC. Power lunch, power trade, ticker tape parade. Commodities move, dollars be very afraid. For every action there will be a reaction. Government distraction, big bank transaction. Feds got the C-SPAN out the room, yo. Running their cameras, effing up the flow. Tune in to NPR for the actual facts. Thinking public radio is where it's at? Blow the horns on them. Expose the truth. Get loose. Break free from that mind control juice. They keep us entertained with the latest Hollywood spoof. In the ass rappers that have no coups. Pop singers and dance stars with no clothes. Show cleavage and butt cracks. Look like hoes. The green collar rap is the name of the flow. Ness Malin in the know. Better stay on your toes.
All right. Picket signs, banners, paintings, murals, spoken word, all have the ability to share messages with people who need to know about issues that really matter. We can't wait for the mass media to do it. If we do, we're going to be waiting an awful long time, folks. Next time an issue is brewing, or a rally is forming, or a public hearing is going to take place in your area, consider using your creativity, and if not your own creativity, how about supporting others who use their creativity in ways that communicate and express need-to-know information to help improve the human condition in your area. All it takes is one person to get the movement going, and to remind us of this very truth, we have Annie DeChant singing her song, Out There. That's it for this episode, folks. So hey, make something happen. You can do it. Be the one. Get out there.
People thought they were off their rockers. They'd never get that airplane off the ground. Till one morning out in Kitty Hawk in that Carolina sky, she flew 12 seconds before she came back down. Then people thought the sky was the limit, that going to the moon could not be done. But when the eagle landed, that brave space cowboy took one small step and proved everybody wrong. Out there, dancing on a wire, out there, running through the fire. They ain't afraid to fall, they live to risk it all. If you're gonna do a lot, then you gotta be a little out there. A seamstress from Montgomery, Alabama, stayed seated on a bus and took a stand. That brazen little move caused a revolution. She broke every boundary when she wouldn't budge an inch. So if you think that you won't make a difference, that what you're trying to prove is too bizarre, remember it's the dreamers, the do-or-die believers, that march right into history just being who they are. Out there, dancing on a wire, out there, running through the fire. They ain't afraid to fall, they live to risk it all. If you're gonna do a lot, then you gotta be a little out there. says, let's live to risk it all and don't be afraid to fall. If we're gonna do a lot, then we gotta be a little out there. People thought they were off their rocker.